And here we have one of the episodes that is possibly least useful for a TTRPG because this episode is focused entirely on the whole sentient rights aspect of artificial um, life forms. Yes, they kept calling them artificial life forms for some reason. Why? Anyway, though, the main issue here in the episode is that idea that androids should be considered property and not people, which obviously that kind of sort of sidesteps the entire concept of androids because the entire point behind androids, at least as they're presented in Star Trek, is that they're able to act like people. Yeah. Anyways, so the basic gist of it is that a Federation science person who what's the best way to put this? Thinks that the Federation could learn a lot from analyzing data and trying to recreate data. Except that he thinks that they should also dismantle data in the process. And one thing that I find strange about this is that why are they specifically wanting to dismantle data? If I remember right, at this point, they'd actually found other examples. It's just that none of them was actually a working example, and making Sung type androids work turns out to be something that even Data has problems with. And because in the later episode, when he tries to create LOL, he fails to make a stable positronic matrix, and later realizes that the error that he'd made is actually one that Sung had made himself, which is the whole like cascade failure thing. And Sung's solution to the cascade failure is one that was probably something that the Starfleet people who wanted to create duplicate Sung type androids would have needed. Actually, you know what? Let's look at that quick. See, dismantling lore and putting his pieces in a box, I mean, yes, they did that. How exactly this works isn't completely clear. They show these little, like, round disc-like attachment points, but when you look at the way data moves, that doesn't make sense. Anyway, though, yeah, in Star Trek Picard, Bruce Maddox and Altan Soon, who the heck is Altan Soon? Um, did eventually create androids based on Noonien Soon's work. One of the thing about Noonien Soon's work, though, that's like the most impressive is the simple cybernetic brain thing because Data's positronic brain is the part that makes him able to be a sentient being, and that's probably what Maddox is really wanting, is trying to figure out how to make a positronic brain, because all of the actual like mechanisms like arms and what have you, sophisticated, sure, but it's not exactly something that's beyond a Federation ability to replicate, because they actually do that whenever they need to repair data. Granted, that doesn't happen in many episodes, although it does happen in a few. Now, so the key aspect of this, though, is presumably the whole like making it so that the android actually has the ability to think. And in That was in The Offspring, which was a season 3 episode. So relatively early in TNG, honestly, but not hasn't happened yet. Now the interesting thing about that though is that Data was actually able to build the entirety of a Soong type android or a close emulation of one. And hmm, let's see here. How many is this thing? Yeah, it says like Dr. Soong at the time was the only scientist who had made one successfully. And realistically, this is the part that would have been the most interest to Maddox. And that was another interesting thing with this whole thing, though, is that um, getting it to work due to its incredible complexity is probably what Maddox wanted, but also at the same time, it's one of those things where if you break the only working example you have, what's the point of examining it? Anyways, though, this particular one here, this is actually just in the episode. It's kind of sort of presented as being equivalent to detaching a CPU from the rest of the computer. It's like it doesn't break the CPU. It just makes it inactive by disconnecting it, which fits with the whole Android thing. Because there's another episode where Data's head gets physically separated from his body and is reattached, and then he's fine. The whole cascade anomaly thing, yeah. Yeah. This is another thing that's interesting is because like this sounds like it's supposed to be the same kind of technology, except that it's a cybernetic brain. How do you make that work? Anyway, though, so going back to this, if you're doing a TTRPG about the whole like sentient rights concept, it's probably best to go at it from the angle of this has happened more than once in the past, and you would need to come up with an explanation for how it's different than previous examples because there's been cases of them having one about whether or not sentient holograms are people. Obviously, this one was about data and whether data should be considered a person or a piece of equipment and so on. It's on the one hand, it's something that's repetitive, but every time it's come up, it's been handled slightly differently and with a different focus. Like in the episode with Mud in TOS, Mud was selling the androids for what was essentially slave labor, and it's not entirely clear what the Federation did about that, and also the fact that that was over 100 years before this, and you would think that the Federation would have decided um, some sort of legal thing based on what Mud did in TOS, but apparently not. Or at the very least, Well, actually, that's another thing, is that Data went through Starfleet Academy to become a Starfleet officer and has been a Starfleet officer for several years and is apparently, this didn't come up previously in his career. So that's another aspect of this, is that it's someone kind of stirring the pot on the Android issue and not actually like the bulk of the Federation actually agreeing on the Android issue. Because that's actually one of the things here, is that the logic here is that Maddox wants to study Zoom type androids in order to make more of them, and thinks that the only way to make it work is to do that with data. It's just that his um, attempt at it is just not a good one. Anyway, though,